it is important to acknowledge that the relationship of our various countries with oil and gas is in an interesting and somewhat complicated mode. It is for many of us the mainstay of our economies, delivering much needed government revenues and foreign exchange to our economies. But at the same time, there is a challenge of overdependence, evident from the troubles that we all went through when the price of crude oil dramatically fell in the period 2014 to 2015. The lesson here is that while oil and gas will continue to be critical to our revenue bases and our national economies, we must redouble our efforts to achieve the following. One, to diversify our economies away from the dangerous overdependence. And two, to ensure that we invest as much as is possible of today's current oil and gas revenues in the infrastructure and human capital that will underpin future economic growth and development. We must keep in mind that oil and gas are only guaranteed as today's resources and not necessarily tomorrow's. We cannot bet on the fact that even a few decades ago from now, these natural resources will not be as central or as relevant to the global economy as they are today. All serious economies around the world have realized this and are making determined plans for a world beyond oil, or as they say, a zero-oil world. As African countries, we cannot afford to act differently.
The reality is that all over Africa, there are new finds of oil. Massive exploration is going on. And everybody is enthused by the possibility of further harnessing new natural resource that we're going to use, to develop the continent. But the reality also is that finding the necessary finance for this is very difficult. Increasingly with what has happened in terms of the tumbling of oil prices over the last few years, nice that is beginning to come up. A lot of investors found it difficult to invest, not just in oil exploration activities, but in fact, even worse still, oil exploration activities in Africa. And so the only way growth will happen in this sector in the whole of Africa is an interdependence approach. All of us must be able to hold hands and find a way of supporting one another in terms of the research, in terms of internal investment potentials and capabilities, and help to drive a process. But more fundamental, we also must be in a position to have a lot of best learning from some of the 3 or 4 major producer countries that have been in this for quite a long time as the new ones are coming on board. So we're therefore having to juxtapose the rising profile of African oil production with the level of responsibility that's required for purpose of integration to enable us to achieve the objectives that we have.
See if they can adjust a little bit so that they do not cut off other delegates from...
Hello. Step back. Okay. All right, thank you. Right.